Lawrence Patrick David Gillick. Pat, brilliant evaluator whose remarkable memory and uncanny ability to shape rosters resulted in 3 World Series titles and a sterling resume with 6 organizations.
I also owe a debt of thanks to Pat Gillick and Paul Beeston, who I worked for in Toronto. When you talk about enjoying your job and having fun too, these 2 guys were the very best.
It isn't the one person that goes into the Hall of Fame, it's a group. And that's what I'm proud of, the fact that we hired good people, we hired good scouts, we hired good player personnel people that knew their job and could convey and could teach. And that's what it's all about.
I would hope that I would go in before I'm dead, but I think I'll probably get there. I'll be one of those guys that taking it after they're dead, which makes no sense at all to me. But, that's whatever's going to be, it's going to happen. I don't even think about it anymore. It's an honor to even think that you had a chance to get in there,
This is episode 5. 2 All-Stars at the helm and 1 deserving one on the bench. While the roster of the 1985 Jays was special, it was the front office that assembled the team and the coaching staff that played an important role in getting them to gel. This is OK Blue Jays, the emergence of a franchise. I'm Sam Charles. There have been 14 different managers for the Blue Jays over their history to date. A handful of them have served at the helm more than once. When the Blue Jays hired Bobby Cox following the 1981 season, their fortunes quickly turned. As Cito Gaston remembers it, the coaching staff of him, Al Widmeyer, the pitching coach, Bill Smith at first base, John Sullivan in the bullpen, and Jimmy Williams at third bought right into Cox's vision.
And, stay consistent because we only had 4 coaches, and Al Widmeyer and John Sullivan. And they're all hard-working coaches, man, and we all worked hard. Jimmy threw our batting practice every day that we had extra hitting on the road. And Sully and I, even with a broke arm, I had a bad arm all the time. We used to hit the garage all the time. He used to think I was throwing him, but just my arm was bad. And myself and Sully, we just 3 of us threw batting practice. Once in a while, Bobby could throw for us, and because Bobby had bad knees, and then again, Widmeyer, he could throw it all. So it's just hard work that the coaching staff did, and guys willing to come out and work. And we had some guys that wanted to win. And I think when you want to win badly enough, you're going to win if you go work hard at winning and keep that mentality. Hey, it's nothing like winning. Losing, anybody can do that, but winning's tough. But I think that's what we had, the mentality of that team. Guys wanted to win. And Bobby sometimes he was tough, but he's fair. He made sure that when it's time to play baseball, you're playing baseball. And Bobby Cox never stopped rooting for you in the dugout. I mean, it's just constantly, every hitter that went up there, every pitcher was thrown. I was rooting so hard for everyone. And I'm so happy about him. I don't ever forget about Bobby. He gave me a chance to come over there and work with the Blue Jays organization. And, of course, Bobby and I had played together, and AA won actually Texas League Championship in Austin, Texas. And Bobby hit a home run and Little Rock hit a home ball on the school off of Wayne Granger that put us over the top. And then we went out and played. We had a 1-game playoff because it kept raining there, and we went out and played Albuquerque, which was the Dodgers, and we beat them up pretty bad. Rode the bus all the way out there it was like 16 hours, and got off the bus and started playing. But Bobby was a gamer, as we call it. And, he played third base, and that ball had to hit him in the head to get by him. That's the kind of mentality he brought to that organization. Hey, we're going to win. We want to win, and if you don't want to win, don't show up.
Here's Rance Mulliniks. He was a member of the Blue Jays for 11 seasons and played for 4 different managers during that time.
Bobby Cox, no doubt, led that ball club. He was a tremendous manager. We know he's in the Hall of Fame now based upon what he accomplished as a manager in baseball. But Bobby, he understood that he was in the people business, not just a manager and filling out the lineup card, making the changes and so forth that we all know a manager has to do. He knew how to treat his people and deal with them. And he was always very positive. We could lose a tough game, and maybe we'd been, struggling a little bit. And as he would be coming through the clubhouse, heading to his office, he would say, hey, we'll get them tomorrow. Just be ready to go tomorrow. We'll get them tomorrow. So he was very positive, and he really knew how to treat us as people and get the best out of us. And so all of us had a tremendous amount of faith, confidence, and trust in Bobby Cox. And then you combine that. Cito was the hitting coach, and Cito, very even keel, never panics, always easygoing. And he always had a way of, if you're struggling a little bit, helping you get back on your feet, get your confidence back just through his quiet confidence. And so that you combine those two together, for instance, as an example, and this is where he and Bobby had a great working relationship. Let's just say a player or I'm struggling with something. And I knew Bobby was fine if I went to Cito and talked to Cito about it because I was more maybe comfortable talking with Cito and maybe we had a little closer relationship. And then you can reverse that. Some may have been more comfortable talking with Bobby. So it was just a great combination that I don't think has ever been surpassed within the organization.
Players like Ernie Whitt could sense a change when Bobby Cox joined the team.
I can recall a meeting that he had in spring training when he first came in, the first meeting. And it was a little bit just about his verbiage that he used. It was, it's like our plan, our goal is that we want to win X amount of games this year. It wasn't like we don't want to lose 100 games. He talked about winning and being consistent on the field and growing as a team, basically all of us pulling the rope the same way. And that's something that had never happened prior to Bobby Cox coming into that. He was a great addition for the organization at the time, a great addition. He was, I've always said he was my favorite manager that I played for. And when I went into coaching and managing, I wanted to carry myself the way he carried himself with his players and his coaches, stuff like that. So he was a great addition to the organization in '82.
Whitt says Bobby Cox had a unique leadership style, as did his staff.
I think the fact that he got to know his players really well. He got to know what they were capable of doing and not capable of doing. And he would always try to put them in a position where they're going to succeed. He always, as long as you gave everything you had on the field, he would be behind you. And he would support you to the end. Now, if you start to slough off a little bit or you're mentally were not into the game, he would confront you on that. And he would, basically, this is not acceptable and it won't be accepted. And players love that. They love to know where they stand on situations or with the managers and the coaches. He would tell you if you weren't going to play the next night, he would come up the day before, that night before the game and tell you, hey, I'm giving you tomorrow off. Go home and relax. Don't worry about it. Turn your brain off for a little bit. I mean, it's just knowing what your status is going to be, which allowed to free things up. I know the first time that he came in and he said, look, you're going to catch, every time a right-hander is throwing, starting the game, you're going to be my starting catchers until I tell you otherwise. So I knew what my role was going to be on the team. And now, again, if I went into a little tail spin or a slump, he would come up, we'd talk about it, and, he'd give you a couple of days to get yourself back on track, and that's working with the coaches and himself. But the communication level that he had, I think, was one of the most important things that worked for him, and the players trusted him.
Cox arrived with a number of coaches, but worked with Pat Gillick to add additional members of the coaching staff.
Coxie, he had a couple of coaches that he had in Atlanta that he wanted to bring over. One ended up being a major league manager, Cito Gaston. The other one was his bullpen coach, John Sullivan. Bob brought those two fellows over when he came from Atlanta. He wanted them on his staff for sure. And then we had Jimmy Williams, who we were considering for manager when we made the change and hired Cox. We were thinking of Jimmy. And so Jimmy ended up being a major league manager too. And we got him from the California Angels. And then we had an in-house hitting instructor, Billy Smith, who was great at hitting. He actually in the minor leagues hit 4 over 400 in the minor leagues. And then the pitching coach was probably the key to our whole situation, Al Whitmore, who had been with Milwaukee, pitched in the big leagues. Sullivan was a catcher and also a catching coach. Jimmy handled the infield. Cito was the outfield coach. Billy Smith was assistant to Cito as the hitting coach, and Al Whitmore keyed up the pitching staff. We had a good staff. We had a staff that whatever their particular expertise was, they were good at it, and they worked well together. We were the first 5 years. We were doing a lot of teaching because a lot of these players had never, been in the big leagues before, so we had to basically say, we do things in the big leagues a little different than the minor leagues. It's still a bat and a ball, and you're hitting and you're facing pitching and all that, but the major league level, it's a little different style of play. So we had a good staff that was able to basically encourage the players and at the same time develop the players, over that 6 year period.
Closer Tom Henke joined the team in July. He credits Ernie Whitt and Buck Martinez, along with the coaching staff, for helping him settle in with the team.
I love those guys. They were Buck and Ernie. They were my teachers when I got there. I trusted my catchers as much as anybody. I had to trust those guys that they knew the hitters better than I did, and which they did. They were in the league a lot longer, and, I would have never had the success I had without those two guys. Sully was like my dad out in the bullpen. John Sullivan, he did the speech at my Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I asked him to do the speech for me and present my award, and he was there. And I tell you, and we just lost him last year, and he was like a dad to me away from home. And Al Whitmore, Al was as good a pitching coach as I ever. And Al helped me. He really, really helped me when I came over to the Blue Jays. He said, we just need to get you into the strike zone more. He said, I've seen all the stuff in Texas. And Al would work with me day after day on my delivery and getting things a little bit more compact. And after I got with Al, I was never really out of the strike zone again. I mean, yeah, I walked some guys, but it was one of those deals where he was a great pitching coach, and really loved him to pieces too. He helped my career tremendously.
Cito Gaston had only been coaching in the Braves organization as a minor league hitting instructor when he got the call to join the Jays. He says he learned a lot during his time working with Bobby Cox.
Well, you know what? Bobby Cox was a winner. Like I said, Bobby just rooted for everybody every second of the day. You talk to those guys, they'll tell you how much they love Bobby. Bobby was a great guy. And he certainly gave me a chance to become a coach in Major League, so I will never forget Bobby. But his winning mentality was just, win. No matter what it costs, we have to win. We want to win. And I think that's what Bobby brought to the field every day. Like I said, he's like Preston. Preston Gomez was fair but tough, if he had to be tough. And Bobby was the same way, fair but tough. And what I mean fair is, hey, he gives you a chance to play. He gives you a chance to produce. And if you don't produce, hey, we get somebody else and put him in there.
Gaston has an interesting backstory. He was a decent major leaguer, and he also roomed at one time with his childhood hero, Hank Aaron. That relationship is what led him into coaching and eventually to the Blue Jays. I
was very fortunate. I got to room with my childhood idol. The first year they called me up to the big leagues, and I roomed with Hank. And then next spring training, I roomed with him. And then, of course, after my career was over, he called me 3 times. And he said, Cito, would you come work with me? He's farm director for the Atlanta Braves. And 2 times I said no. I said I had enough of baseball. And the third time he called me again, and I said, okay. And, I mean, without Hank, I would not even been anywhere close to being in Toronto or anywhere else. And I think I only worked there a year and a half, and Bobby Cox got fired in Atlanta. He went to the Blue Jays, and I got hired from there. And the rest of it was history. But without Hank, I wouldn't have what I have. I wouldn't have experienced all the good times and bad times. But, yeah, I owe Hank a whole lot. He treated me like his son, taught me how to tie a tie. So we go way back. And that's what happened. I stayed with them for a year and a half in the minor leagues. I was a minor league hitting coach. And Next thing I know, I was in the big leagues again.
Gaston played in the minors with Bobby Cox prior to connecting with him as a coach.
My first year in Venezuela, Barquisimeto with Bobby Cox, we played there together, and I had not even hit a home run, and I was hitting about 260, something like that. Then the next year I came back and played for Magallanes. I hit 383 and drove in 64 runs, and that's in 60 ball games. And then the next year I hit 365. And so I became a big hero, big guy down in Venezuela.
When Gaston became a minor league roving hitting instructor, he had a lot of mentorship from other coaches within the Braves system.
I had some great guys to start out with. Johnny Singh was one of the guys, the manager of the Atlanta Braves right now. Nick and I was roommates, and I actually introduced him to his wife and said, we're still friends, so I guess it was okay. And I guess the biggest guy I learned from was Eddie Haas. So I had some good guys around me real quick that taught me a lot of stuff about baseball. But I go back to Preston Gomez when I was playing for Preston Gomez in San Diego. Preston would be 2 or 3 innings ahead of the game all the time. And that helped me too. But I don't know, I got lucky and I just picked it up real quick and moved on from there. You know, you never know what's going on, and you don't know what's happening. People are talking about you. People are looking and watching what you're doing. And they had a kid, and it's a shame I don't remember his name, the kid they had in Durham, North Carolina. And every time I went into town, the kid would really start to hit. And as soon as I left town, he wouldn't hit. And Bobby Cox noticed that, so when he got the job in Atlanta, he gave me a call. And I think other kids I helped out too. So they were kind of watching that. I had no idea they were watching that because the only thing I was doing was trying to do my job. I wasn't trying to get, they used to call them points. You know, to me, I say you get points if you win and kids keep progressing up the line to making it to the big leagues. That's how you get points and keep your job. But yeah, I guess they were watching me a little bit closer than what I thought they were, you know.
Both Rance Mulliniks and Ernie Whitt say Cito Gaston played a pivotal role in their success as major leaguers.
What Cito did was he taught me how to prepare to mentally hit at the major league level. And what that involved was teaching myself the mental discipline of being very decisive about what it was I wanted to hit. The easiest way to describe that is if you're going to look fastball and forget about everything else. Don't try to adjust to it, or look curveball, look changeup, etc. But whatever it is, whatever the pitch is you're looking to hit, you forget about all the other pitches and you just be very decisive with that. That sounds easy, but what I had to do was recondition or change the way I had been taught to think as a hitter. And that took some time. When that really fell into place for me was in early of 1983. And that year I hit 275, almost half my hits were for extra bases. And that completely changed everything for me. And that just carried over into 1984, 1985, et cetera.
Basically, you know, Bobby allowed his coaches to coach. Cito was probably he was the best hitting coach I ever had. He was not so much mechanically. I mean, we did work on some mechanics, but more so as I got older, having a game plan on how the opposing pitchers were going to try to get me out. And mentally, I was more prepared mentally with Cito there than I was with any other hitting coach. And as far as Al Widmar, him and I were in constant communication along with Buck on game planning. You know, what is our pitchers capable of doing in certain situations, and try to keep them pitching out of trouble instead of pitching them into trouble. So again, it's the recognition of what that pitcher had that night that was working for him, and how we can continue to get innings out of, you know, our pitchers and not stress our bullpen out.
Gaston credits the players, particularly in those early years.
You know, I was lucky enough to have young guys there like George Bell, along with Jesse Barfield, Lloyd Mosby, and Dallas Garcia, God bless his soul. He just passed away, I think, a couple of years ago. And, you know, and Alfredo Griffin, Tony Fernandez.
Throughout his career as a coach, Gaston preached planning and patience.
Well, I think that's what I brought along with me. And I tell you what, I played in the big leagues for 6 years and made All-Star team one year. and I didn't really know how to hit. I didn't learn how to hit till I was in the big leagues for 6 years. And that's what we're talking about, having a plan, having an idea. In the minor leagues, and still a lot of people are teaching this, look fastball and just to a curveball. I do not believe in that, because the fastball is now 96, 97 miles an hour, and curveball is 85 miles an hour, or maybe a little higher than that. You cannot adjust to those pitches in the big leagues. And so I was telling a story about A-Rod that he had a 500 home run off of me, and he had 600 home run against me. And I would see A-Rod take a fastball right down the middle and go back and sit down. The next time you throw it down the middle, he might hit it out of the ballpark, but he's sitting on a curveball. So what Rance is talking about, I got Rance to do, is have an idea when you walk up to play. Have an idea what you want to hit. And you know what? This game is so unbelievable tough to play, because, you can fail 7 times and be right 3 times, and you're a multi-millionaire. And I don't know any job in the world you can screw up 7 times, still have a job. So that was the plan, to get these guys to start looking for pitches, start sitting on pitches. And, I certainly worked with Rance and certainly Ernie. Ernie's a good fastball hitter, and that's what he looked for. Why look for something you can't hit? And it helped him out. Rance could hit curveballs too, and fastballs. So Rance turned out to be a great hitter. He still gives me a lot of credit, but I give it back to him because he's the one up there hitting. So that's what I think I brought with me into the organization. And I kind of learned that from McCovey when I played with McCovey one year in San Diego, and we talked hitting. Him and I was mates on the airplane that we set together. And so I thought I'd bring that with me. And like I said, I didn't learn how to hit in the big leagues till I was 6 years in, and that's what made me a better hitter. But at that time, I wasn't playing that much. And I wish I'd have learned that a long time ago.
I asked Gaston what he knew about Toronto prior to accepting a job with the Jays.
I didn't really know anything about the organization at all. No more than Dave Stee's brother was a catcher in the Braves organization, and I knew him. And, of course, a long time ago when they used to play when they were in AAA, I was playing in Batavia, and 3 guys, we drove up there one day just to see a game. And that was the old ballpark down on the water. Otherwise, I didn't know a thing about that city, because we used to go into Montreal. I went to Montreal for almost 11 years, so that's the city that I knew a little bit about, not much. But Toronto, I didn't have any idea what it was going to be like, and it turned out to be great.
One could easily make a case that Cito Gaston deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame, having led the team to 4 division titles, 2 league pennants, and 2 World Series. It takes a special dynamic between the front office and the coaching staff to ensure a team succeeds. In 1985, that dynamic was evident. Here's Pat Gillick.
Well, we met a lot from the standpoint of getting input from the coaching staff, and they knew that we were a little different. First 5 years, we were more teaching than we were coaching. We were coaching, but we were teaching more, because you get players from different organizations, and there's different ways that different organizations do things. So consequently, some of the things that we ask the players to do, they probably had never done before. Just a certain way of fundamentals and things that they need to practice and need to develop. That was a difficult period, but it was challenging. Let me put it that way.
Rance Mulliniks says the Jays were lucky not only to have a great coaching staff in 1985, but a brilliant front office.
Pat Gillick, baseball genius, is the way I would refer to Pat. Great memory, wonderful memory. I mean, he could remember seeing somebody from years ago, which sometimes helped him make a trade or a deal or something. Or he had the ability to recognize talent that sometimes maybe some others didn't see. He just had that gift. I think it's one of the reasons why he was able to get a Damaso Garcia, a George Bale as a Rule 5. After the 82 season, when we traded Dale Murray to the Yankees, is the trade that we got Fred McGriffin, who'd been an A-ball the year before. I mean, things like that about Pat Gillick were just, and then he knew how to put the pieces of the puzzle together. He realized, okay, here is a hole, be it a position or a starting pitcher or somebody in the bullpen that we need to strengthen and that we need to fill. And I can either do that through a trade, maybe occasionally signing a free agent. But because he could see talent that maybe others couldn't, oftentimes he'd pick a player off here or there that turned out to be a tremendous player and do a great job for the Blue Jays. Paul Beeston, the one thing I could say about Paul is, now again, this is just me and my opinion. I wasn't in the room when any of this happened. But I always felt like Pat Gillick was the kind of person, let's say they're trying to sign player X, whoever that might be, either a Blue Jay that they wanted to extend their contract out, sign him to a multi-year deal, or a free agent, whatever it may be, or even a trade, something of that nature. I always felt that Pat was the kind of guy that would walk himself through it mentally time and time and time again and question, is it the right decision? Is it the wrong decision? And trying to figure out all these various scenarios that sometimes takes place. But ultimately, I think in the end, that Paul Beeston was the guy who could eventually say to Pat, and Pat had a lot of trust and faith in Paul's judgment to say, let's get the deal done. Let's pull the trigger on this and move forward. We're not going to always be right. Sometimes we're going to be wrong. But it's time to make the decision, pull the trigger, and move forward. And if we're wrong, we're wrong. We'll deal with that later. And I think those two, they combined their strengths and meshed them together, that they made some great, they signed some outstanding players. And I mean, some Blue Jays that extended their contracts out, made some trades that turned out to be a tremendous benefit to the organization. So that's the best way I would describe those two.
Next time on OK Blue Jays, the emergence of a franchise. The Jays head to the American League Championship Series for the first time, and with plenty of confidence.
We won 99 games, and I would say we were pretty confident, and especially so after we got off to a 2-game lead in the series.
I think we were very confident. We knew Kansas City had a very good team. We knew we couldn't let George Brett beat us.
And so we knew the work was going to be cut out for us.
We were ready to go. There's no question about that. We were very confident. September had been like the playoffs for us, because we went all the way down to the last day of the season against the Yankees to win it. It was tough, and we felt that we were the favorite going in to beat them.
We were playing well. I mean, losing those first 2 games, it was hard. But it was the veteran players, Helm, George Brett. It was those guys that kind of, it's like, okay, we just got to win tomorrow. We just win this game, and then win the next game. And it just seemed to go from there. And like I said, you can't do it without pitching. And our young pitchers just really stepped up and just pitched unbelievable.
If you're enjoying the show, please share it with others or even rate it. And if you have the means, consider making a donation to Jays Care, your local food bank, or a charity of your choice. If you want to share your memories or thoughts, email us at okbluejays@mail.com. That's okbluejays@mail.com. I'm Sam Charles. Thanks for listening.